Oh, that's fantastic. So somebody asked, what's going on the continent? Well, I tell you what's going on the continent.
Ooh, tell us, please.
So this is one of many protests that have been happening in Niamey, Niger, outside of a French base. They have been out in front of this French base for 3 days in a row, and they're still ongoing. Nigerians, not to be confused with Nigerians, Nigerians are demanding that the French troops leave their country, and you probably can't read that. So let me, there we go. No,
Now,
I don't
Jackie,
want to.
does my eyes deceive me? Am I literally seeing hundreds of people? Likely, I mean, is it that's
Thousands,
thousands of people?
thousands of people, thousands of people out there for 3 days and still out there. Stop that. Go away.
Shut down Babylon. Get them out of there.
Uh-huh. So here are just some, pictures of folks out there. Oh, goodness gracious, these pop-ups. So what is happening now? President Emmanuel Macron of France has finally made a U-turn and has begun negotiations for the withdrawal of French troops from Niger with the Nigerian military government. This decision comes in response to the consecutive protests by thousands of Nigerians against the presence of French troops and the ambassador. So we'll see
Hmm.
how it goes.
Is the French is the French ambassador still in Niger? They still let him they let him stay. They
Well,
ain't put
he's
him out.
staying in that building with no power and water, but
So,
yeah. Um,
yes.
additionally, additionally, a few U.S. planes have been observed leaving the country, although the reasons for their departures remain unclear at the time of writing this report. I'll take it for the win that it is. So there appears to be some movement on French troops leaving Niger. We will continue to watch and see what happens, see if they really do leave, and then what the people and the military transitional government that they support do if they don't leave. And as for Gabon, this is why we were very careful in how we talked about what was going on in Gabon compared to what happened in Mali, Burkina Faso, Guinea-Bissau, and Niger, because in Gabon, the French government has received guarantees from the military transitional leaders that the French interests would not be threatened in the country. So
Boo.
what is going on in Gabon is not the
Right.
same thing as what has been going on in the rest of West Africa. So we had a protest. We helped, or we, meaning the Black Alliance for Peace, and several other organizations here in Washington D.C. African People's Socialist Party, Party for Socialism and Liberation, participated in and helped organize a protest with a group that organize themselves. They're a group of diasporic Africans who are from some of these West African countries and other countries, um, who organize themselves in response to what's going on in West Africa, and they came together, organized themselves as Africa United, reached out to us, asked us to be involved. We had the third protest of that group, that formation's demonstrations in front of the French embassy this past Saturday. And at the same time, that protest was happening in front of the French embassy. And I was just talking to somebody at that protest, and their husband was saying, and their husband is also African, and he was saying, I wish more people would be here. This is not enough people. And I said, yeah, that's true, but I don't want you to be discouraged by that, because look, this is not a sprint. This is a marathon, and you got to understand the class character of our people and the propagandization and our disconnection from the continent, and that's by design, and all of this kind of stuff. And then somebody else showed me the video of the protesters in Niamey in Niger, And then I ran back to this person and I showed them and I said, see, it's okay if there are a few of us here because we're backed up by these people. We're backed up. We're backing them up, but really, we've got a nation of thousands, millions backing us. So don't be discouraged that it's just a few of us out here in front of the French embassy, because we're connected to these thousands of people in Niamey. So exciting, exciting times. But again,
It was it's disappointing to
cautiously
hear about
optimistic.
Gabon. To hear what the military transitional leaders are saying about the French interests not being
Mhm.
threatened, but encouraging to see that massive amount of support out there in Niger. Now, I'm skeptical about Macron and the French, trying to negotiate an exit because, we know how that goes. Oh, well, within 5 years, we'll be, no, nigga. 30 days. Get y'all shit and get the fuck out. Like I'm hoping it's a quick transition that gets negotiated because I feel as though if France is able to say, oh, we'll be out in a year, we'll be out in 2 years, that's just going to drag it on, give them an opportunity to, not to say that they needed to be there to create instability, but the longer that they are there, the more chances they have to continue to foment not only dissent but
Mhm.
confusion and all that. So I'm hoping that they will get out soon and not later.
Yeah.
Pardon me, ladies, real quick before you go ahead, Ricky. No, actually, go ahead, Ricky, and answer. We have a question from the chat room.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was just going to remark that I don't know if I would say disappointing with Gabon, the situation, but I do think that that points us to analyzing these things as they are, adjusting to the class character. I think it's very easy for us to say the Sahel and not realize that these are individual states. And yes, there's federations that are looking to be formed, but all of these states have their own class character, have their own material conditions that drove the coup. And then they all also have a different mass base of people. So when we look at places like Burkina and Mali, they seem to be more sophisticated currently because they have a stronger mass base that are politically aligned with anti-imperialism than we
Mhm.
would see in Niger, but Niger has a growing mass base of anti-imperialism. We can't say that we see that in Gabon as of yet, which I think dictates the direction that they would go. Even though Bongo did absolutely lose those elections, and the people are righteously upset um, about the way that he tried to keep into power. I think analyzing Gabon as its own state and the history of Gabon, and then even who the people who are the coup leaders are, um, the history that they have, is important because Guinea Conakry had their own coup that I think predates Mali and Burkina Faso,
Mhm.
and you don't hear much about Guinea because Guinea has its own material conditions that are not like what we're seeing in Burkina and Mali. Chad had a coup as well,
Right.
and Chad's coup
Mhm.
is very reactionary, very U.S. favored. So there's
Mhm.
things that have been happening in that region that calls for actual investigation and introspection, as opposed to like a wide sweeping, generalized thing from how we understand one or maybe two states. Because I think the question from the super chat was like, who just took back their gold reserves, which country? And that was Mali. Mali just did that.
Mhm.
Mali as well kicked out the French, but when Mali kicked out the French and gave them that you have to leave now, they deeper encroached into Niger.
Hmm.
So they didn't leave the continent. So I guess for me, that's also something that we have to consider. Where would the French go, right? If they have to leave
Mhm.
right now at this moment, they're not leaving the continent. So where are they expanding to? Where are they going to encroach in? And then also with
Right.
Gabon, I think there's less conversation about that coup because the U.S. is trying to play up the anti-French sentiments to their benefit. So it's not even that we have to look at what the French is doing in regards to not wanting to leave, but how the U.S. is reacting to it. We
Right.
also have to consider, just as there needs to be thousands outside of that base, there is a U.S. AFRICOM drone base in Niger, the
Mhm.
second largest one in the world, not just the continent. And there's also a CIA base in Niger.
Whole CIA base.
Right. So we have to think about what is the U.S. intending to do, especially when we think through Victoria Nuland's role and trying to squeeze them into some sort of position.
Mhm.
But I say that to say there is a mass base that has a class character that is distinctly, well, not distinctly, but moving towards concretely an anti-imperialist position that would have a different determination for these outcomes than if they weren't.
Very
Yeah.
good point, Ricky. And thank you, Infinite Content, for the question that Ricky answered. Jackie didn't. One of the former French colonies nationalized their gold mines and kicked out foreign mining companies recently. Thank you, Infinite Content, for the $5.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if they kicked out the mining companies. I think it was Mali that
Burkina,
Yeah, it was Burkina
Canada.
Faso that they changed the contract between the mining companies and the government so that the government um makes more money, receives a higher percentage of the proceeds of those contracts than the private companies did. And I don't know that they nationalized the mines. I have to check on that, but they absolutely did revoke those. There was also a double taxation clause where the country had to pay taxes on exported materials twice, and that was done away with. So all this extra money that these foreign mining corporations, the French and the French government was making off of the Burkinabe government, yeah, that's done away with. That was done.
Mm.